Environmental policy is the commitment of an organization, laws, regulations, and other policy that concerns environmental issues. These issues cover subjects of air and water pollution, solid waste management, ecosystem management, maintenance of biodiversity, protection of natural resources, wildlife and endangered species, energy, toxic chemical control, and etc. The United States, like every other country, has its own unique policy, agencies, and conventions for environmental protection. The EPA has primary responsibility for enforcing many of the environmental statuses and regulation of the United States. As such, the agency is granted explicit enforcement authority in environmental statuses. Sometimes this authority need to be further refined or explained. EPA.gov. The EPA is the enforcement officer, while the policy is written by legislators. A policy cycle begins with the creation of a course of action, followed by the enactment of law and the actions that are designed to carry out law successfully. When any policy has been in place for a reasonable period of time, it should be reevaluated to determine if it has achieved the original goals. There was a time when the United States led the way on international environmental cooperation. U.S. efforts were instrumental in launching the United Nations Environmental Program in 1972. President Richard Nixon pledged to contribute 40% of the $100 million that initially capitalized the Environmental Fund, enabling new organizations to work. The United States has since retreated from its global environmental leadership role. Our lack of international cooperation has hurt the effectiveness of overall international environmental policy, but countries are not willing to fall behind because of our indifference. Two key dynamics now mark international environmental policy. First, while it is widely recognized that the U.S. engagement and cooperation is just important, but historically has seen an essential for progress, other nations today seem willing to move ahead without or with the United States. Germany, for example, announced a national greenhouse gas emissions reduction target of 40% by 2020 and threatened to boycott U.S. major emitters initiative launched outside of the Kyoto framework. The international community is not only disappointed but angered with U.S. lack of action. The unprecedented, as Jonathan Lash, president of the World Resources Institute, recently observed, the extraordinary degree of anger and confrontation on environmental matters reflects increasing alarm or climate change in the level of frustration with the United States. With any government policy, the strength is governed by popularity or knowledge and importance of the subject. In its inaugural poll of Americans' environmental attitudes, a new collaboration between Yale School of Forestry and Environmental Studies and the Associated Press says the United States ought to take a leadership role in combating global warming, and twice as many Americans think the country should participate in international treaty negotiations aimed at addressing its effects as oppose it. However, Americans tend to place a low priority on addressing global warming when compared with other environmental concerns, and a few Americans believe that protecting the environment needs to come at the cost of lost economic growth. 56% of Americans believe global warming is happening, and 20% believe it's not happening. Almost a quarter, 23%, are unsure. In most recent history, November 2014, President Barack Obama and Chinese President Xi Jinping announced an agreement between the United States and China to reduce each country's carbon dioxide emissions in an effort to slow the Earth's rising temperatures. This agreement came weeks before United Nations convened the Conventions on Climate Change in Lima, Peru, with the objective of drafting a new international agreement to cut greenhouse gas emissions for the adoption at the 2015 convention. Climate change and the environment are major issues. Steps need to be taken both domestically and internationally in order to secure a safe future for the environment and humanity as we know it.